X-Files Rewatch podcast. Actually, watching the podcast X-Files. I'm not going to do another take. You do a second take, I do only one take.
Are you going to introduce yourself?
Thespomat. No, actually, I'm Nick.
And I'm Kim.
And do we have news on this winter's day?
This winter's day when we're finally returned to the X-Files after what feels like a million years of Lone Gunman.
Yes, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Yes, I've got some updates from FileFest, actually.
Cool.
So, yeah, this is the ultimate X-Files fan convention, as they call themselves, FileFest. So you can find them on X, formerly Twitter, under FileFest_MSP. That's file with a PH, and MSP Mother Sierra Papa. We have some updates. FileFest this year is going to be on August 30th and 31st, and tickets are now available. So if you head to filefest2025.com, you can secure your tickets if you want to go. They have, over the last few weeks, also announced some special guests that they've got going. We have, as you know, I'm terrible at remembering actor names, but we have both Mitch Pileggi, who's Skinner, and Arlene Pileggi, who played Skinner's secretary, I think.
Yep.
We've got Laurie Holden, who is Marita.
Yep.
We've got Brian Thompson, the alien bounty hunter. That one I know. We've got the guy who played Jeffrey Spender. Again, I'm so sorry, I'm terrible at remembering names. Chris Owens. And also Gibson Praise's actor. And of course, Larry Musa, God Amongst Men. We did announce before Christmas that he was going to be present as well. But particularly it's exciting for Arlene Pileggi because apparently this is her first ever convention appearance.
Anything else for newsworthy?
No, that's my news for the week. I thought it was pretty good.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I didn't say it wasn't very good. It's just, is there anything else?
No.
So I suppose we should get to season 9.
Where nothing important happened today.
Yes, parts 1 and 2.
I can say it now and you can't stop me.
I can't stop you. But we'll do part 1 first.
Yeah.
Directed by Kim Manners, written by Chris Carter and Frank Spodlitz, and first broadcast on the 11th of November 2001. New recurring character, or new recurring actor, Carrie Elways, how would you pronounce his name, as Brad Fuller, who's been in too much stuff. Some of these I didn't know because I've never looked at his Wikipedia page before, so it's because you were in what? So, The Princess Bride being the first thing that we are aware of.
As Wesley.
And the Dread Pirate Roberts, and the Man in Black, because he's actually credited for 3 different things.
Oh, is he really?
Days of Thunder, Hot Shots, Bram Stoker's Dracula, Twister, Liar Liar, where he had the hook, claw, whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
The new husband, or new boyfriend, even. Shadow of the Vampire, which I'd forgotten about.
Yes, he is.
Then we get into the ones I didn't know at all. Porco Rosso.
Okay.
In the dub voice, obviously. Saw and Saw 3D. Very obvious.
Just said you didn't know he was in Saw. Getting into the ones you didn't know.
Did
you not notice him in Saw?
Porco Rosso was the old one. Now we're going to flip backwards and forwards.
Yeah, he's Lawrence Gordon in the Saw films.
And then 2 that took me by surprise. So, Cat Returns and Whisper the Heart. So, can you possibly guess who he played if he was in both films?
He's going to be the Baron.
He is indeed Baron. Psych 9, a film that I don't know who's actually seen it, but you.
I have seen Psych 9,
I know.
yes. It's actually okay.
Adventures of Tintin. Black Christmas 2019, because there are 3 Black Christmases and you have to distinguish each one.
This is the one that was largely hated at the time of its release, though personally I'd take it over the remake.
Yes. Seinfeld, who I forgot he was in there.
No, I don't remember him being in Seinfeld.
No, but then these are the great ones. So, Pinky in the Brain. Just wow. Batman Beyond.
Okay.
Stranger Things, that I think after we stopped watching it.
Oh, okay.
The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. And, of course, one of the recent ones that we still need to watch at some point is home movie The Princess Bride. And this is where they've recreated The Princess Bride in little snippets. So the other so the other one who was meant to be a recurring character we found out, and we'll talk about that in a bit, but has turned out to just be a one-off for these 2 episodes, is Lucy Lawless, who's Shannon McMahon. And the first one was a surprise. Ginger Snaps.
Yes, she is.
She's the PA in our
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. Spider-Man. I didn't know she was in Spider-Man.
No, you mean the original movie?
The Sam Raimi one.
The Sam Raimi one, yeah.
She's a punk rock girl or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've never noticed that. Boogeyman. Now we have to specify this is not the 80s Boogeyman. This is the 2000s Boogeyman, which has nothing to do with the 80s one and nothing to do with the Stephen King one from like 2 years ago. Minions: The Rise of Gru.
Oh, okay.
She was Nunchuck.
I remember Nunchuck. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know this one. Well, I kind of knew it, but kind of didn't. So obviously she was in Hercules, whatever it was, the subtitle was, but she's in two different characters.
Oh, okay.
Because she was credited as someone else before Xena was spun off on its own, and then she cameos as Xena into Hercules again.
Mm.
So yeah, she played two entirely different characters in that.
That's interesting.
Xena Warrior Princess, Simpsons, because
when she also played Lucy Lawless stroke Xena.
She was herself in that one. Veronica Mars, she showed up in Flight of the Conchords, a recurring role in Parks and Rec because she gets married to Ron.
Yes, I remember.
And Adventure Time.
Okay. So, do you have a synopsis for part 1 only?
I do, yes. Fortunately, Wikipedia is split into 2. Carl Wermus, an EPA official, picks up a beautiful woman, Shannon McNannon, in a Baltimore bar. While he is driving her home, she forces the car off a bridge and holds Wermus underwater until he drowns. Later, Monica Reyes meets FBI Assistant Director Brad Fulmer in his office, where he hands her 2 videotapes from the night Dana Scully's son was born. The tapes show no evidence of paranormal events John Doggett has reported. Doggett goes to Mulder's apartment to consult him, but finds it empty. Meanwhile, McMahon surfaces at a water reclamation plant and drowns a worker there. Scully refuses to disclose Mulder's whereabouts to Doggett. Meanwhile, Assistant Director Skinner urges him to drop the investigation of Deputy Director Alvin Kirsch's actions against the X-Files. Doggett tries to contact some of his old friends from the Marine Corps to find out what happened to Noel Rohr. One of them turns out to be McMahon. Meanwhile, at FBI headquarters, an unseen figure slips Wermus' obituary to Reyes. Scully's baby causes the mobile of his crib to spin without touching it. Scully is shocked, contacts Doggett, and tells him to continue with the investigation. Scully also performs an autopsy on Wermus' body, where she finds fingerprints on his ankle. After leaving, Scully and Reyes see McMahon, who removes the body from the morgue. Fulmer, who Kirsch has ordered to rein in Doggett, arrives at the scene and accuses Scully and Reyes of moving the body. The lone gunmen find that Wermus has been receiving data from Roland McFarland, the drowned reclamation worker. Doggett breaks into McFarland's office with Skinner and finds files on monochloramine, a mutation-inducing chemical, before Fulmer arrives. Doggett slips into a filtration tank to hide, but is pulled deep underwater by McMahon. Da-da-da-da!
Thank you.
To start with some positives, because I think we're going to have to talk about Lone Gunman pretty early on, is you made a comment, like 5 minutes in, which I keep thinking back on.
What did I say?
You said, my God, this is better. And also it looks better, and it's filmed better, and has better production values, and better music, and better acting, and why are these two series entwined with each other? Because, good God, the trash we've been watching.
Well, trash is a bit harsh, but at the same time, you see when watching The X-Files how it is worlds apart from The Lone Gunman.
Yeah, and it's odd because there was that big thing in season 6 where basically they had to scale things back because they didn't have the money because we're filming in LA. And it's still the equivalent of seeing a Vancouver production being Lone Gunman versus the LA production of The X-Files is they don't even seem like they're in the same universe anymore. Just everything, the lighting looks so much better in The X-Files. Because we've had so much Lone Gunman stuff, I do feel we're gonna have to start with them and the timeline this kind of seems to set up, because something feels off with this.
So, in this episode, the Lone Gunmen appear fairly early in, and the first thing you notice as they file in that Langley has a bright blue face, which no one kind of draws attention to in the episode.
Explains. So, we know where that's coming from because that happens in All About Eve.
Which is the final episode of The Lone Gunman.
Yeah. And we also know that for Langley to still be blue, this has to be within a relatively short time frame. We don't know precisely what the time frame is, because I realised when it says 48 hours later, that's from the car crash, not from the events of Requiem. Oh, Requiem.
We'll try not to mention part 2 too much, but when Langley appears in part 2, his face isn't blue.
Yeah.
So it sets a pretty short timeline if he's got it off between parts 1 and 2, I think. The end of Lone Gunman has to be very close to the start of This Is Not Happening part 1.
Yeah, but that causes all kinds of problems, because we have to deal with what the Lone Gunman subplot is further down the line, because we will be a bit more explicit, because we've been very vague with how things have been left with them.
It's especially problematic if you've been watching Lone Gunman due to the fact that they end up in the Lone Gunman series cliffhanger in such dire peril that they've somehow got out of.
With no repercussions.
Yeah.
Other than Langley being a bit blue, everyone else has got cleaned up and put back into their normal costumes, and Langley is still blue.
Yes.
And it's not like their computer equipment hasn't been seized, they've not been detained by any kind of government forces. they're just doing their usual shtick. I mean, I do kind of understand that we don't really need to draw attention to the Lone Gunman series because it's ended and we don't have a solution to the cliffhanger. At the same time, you kind of are drawing attention to it by making Langley blue.
Yeah. It's odd as an Easter egg as well because it'll literally only make sense vaguely if you've seen The Lone Gunman, and presumably people who didn't watch the Lone Gunman series, us included, because I don't think it aired in TV in the UK until quite a lot after this, are just thinking, what are you trying to portray here? Why is Langley suddenly blue?
Yeah.
Why is nobody commenting on this?
Exactly. But also, we made that point about the timeline, and we're not clear on exactly how much time has passed since presumably Eves was taken, and Lone Gunman, it's kind of awkward to talk about because it's something that will be revealed a bit further down the line, is that they are now missing the other two people from their series. And Kimmy.
Yeah.
It's a problem of the Lone Gunman should have slightly different focuses and should be concerned about other things, especially if you're going to bring the series back in later. And they're just doing normal Lone Gunman stuff.
They're all pretty upbeat as well. There's no sense that a great tragedy has just befallen them.
Yeah, and there's an interesting point there then, which is very confusing. Because John Gilnetz is Shaban, Gilligan, and Spotnitz. Spotnitz wrote this one with Carter.
Yes.
Spotnitz wrote All About Eves and wrote this episode.
Yeah.
Is the only thing he was able to convince Carter of to include was the Blue Langley.
Apparently so.
Because you would think, but having written on both of them, you'd make it flow together a bit better. Especially if you want to wire them together like this. Especially
as they've said before that they felt a bit bad that they couldn't give Lone Gunman viewers closure.
Yeah. So why is it so weak? I mean, I don't actually want it to be stronger, but it just feels really baffling to actually watch them like this.
I can only imagine it would be more frustrating if you had become invested in the Lone Gunman series.
Yeah.
And we do know that some people did.
Yes. There are defenders and champions of it to this day. I don't understand you, but I know you exist. But then, the other part of this is, I think we joked that Sir Mulder has gone missing in this episode. And I think part 2 is actually when we specify what's happened to him.
Yeah.
Except for, we possibly see him showering in Scully's apartment, and we have to infer that's Mulder, because that's the only thing that makes sense. Unless Scully has taken another lover in the last 2 weeks. She could have done, I suppose, but we're pretty sure that's Mulder in that shower.
Probably not Frohickey.
Probably not. But the implication of that, given Langley's still blue, is Mulder met Jimmy Bond in a parking lot. That encounter so badly affected Mulder, he ran away from everyone.
I like your take.
I know that's not what they're going for, but you can imply this. The slightly more conspiracy-oriented one is when Eves handed Jimmy that disc, he did get it to Mulder before fleeing, or whatever's happened to him. However, as long as Eves wasn't lying about what was on that disc, why Mulder would feel the need to vanish on the basis of that is not clear either. And I think we'll do it in part 2 as to what Mulder's done and how bad this justification is. We'll get to that. One thing that struck me about this, and the X-Files hasn't had a reset like this since season 2 with Earl Green Men, where basically the conspiracy is up in the air, but the actual plotline has been kind of snapped off at the end of the last series, and you're starting out fresh again. Is the energy so different? Because season 8 finished with Doggett and Reyes saying, "Aha! Kirsch, we're going to investigate you and the FBI and find out what's going on in the conspiracy terms." And this, it's, "John, stop doing this." And everyone's like against him, and Reyes doesn't seem to care, and Doggett's kind of just jaded and old.
For this episode, it's important to think of both the climate on stage and off stage when we're reviewing it.
That's true.
Because it was a polarising episode at the time it came out. Some people really liked the new direction it was taking. Some critics really hated it. Particularly, I must note, the ones that seem to be very much mired in the past.
Okay.
But first of all, when we were creating the series, we did not know until last minute that both Chris Carter himself and Gillian Anderson were going to return, because both contemplated bowing out at the end of season 8.
Okay.
And apparently a lot was written and set in motion before the two of them decided they were coming back. Carter in particular encouraged people to think up new ideas because he really did not know, because his contract had ended, if he would be allowed to come back for a final season. And Gillian Anderson, because she vehemently, like Duchovny, said, no, my time's done, I want this to move on. And then last minute requested to come back, but in a very reduced capacity was her instruction. So one critic, I think it was the Boston Herald in particular, who said they complained that Scully seemed watered down. It's like, yes, she was, on her request.
That's really odd, though, the fact that she's the starring cast member now. She's first. And that does explain why she's basically not in this episode.
But also, on a more political level,
yeah,
we've talked about fun conspiracies in the past and the fact that conspiracies aren't fun anymore, but at the time the X-Files first came out, they were novel and exciting and something fun to debate. But between these two seasons, 9/11 happened.
Yeah.
Which has completely changed the attitudes of the world and the attitudes to people and what they feel comfortable watching. And so a show about government conspiracies doesn't have the kind of novelty it once did. And interestingly, 5 days after This Is Not Happening Part 2 aired, another show was aired on Fox, which became their big hit flagship series and completely dwarfed X-Files in ratings, which is one of the things that led to its eventual cancellation.
Okay.
It's 24. Which does fit the climate of the times very well.
Yeah, I see.
So yeah, I think when looking at This Is Not Happening, which I actually thought was one of the better season openings we've had for a while, to be fair, it is important to bear those things in mind as well, and why the tone and the general feel of the episode is very different now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not going to dispute that. I'm saying it is odd how marked the shift was. And there's no graceful papering, there's no graceful adjusting to it or anything. I mean, I realised we have skipped over a critical part here.
Oh, yeah.
The intro has changed, which is shocking and weird, but it's changed in a way unlike the other changes.
A lot of critics were really upset about that as well when I was reading back over old reviews.
I'm going to say...
It's not as iconic.
It's not as iconic, but still looking at it, it's very much... We've attempted to modernise and keep the same intro, because a lot of those shots are very similar. Except for kids screaming as the camera pulls back, which is one of those, why is this in here? That looks terrible. But the rest of it is...
I think I prefer it to Mulder falling into the eye.
Well, that was always a bit cringy, wasn't it? But the rest of it, though, it's like you've got the same kind of shots of like the people on the boat looking up at the UFOs that rotates in the sky.
Yeah.
It is the same, it's just in motion rather than still images now.
Yeah, I kind of liked the still images better, to be honest.
Well...
to be fair, I liked the old theme song as well, because we've got a slightly remixed version of it now.
Well, jumping forward, it's not hard to see that basically that would weigh on someone's mind, given that season 10 reverts back to normal.
Yeah.
I think it even reverts back to the original intro, but we'll have to look at that, because I can't remember.
To be fair, season 10 you go back to it being the Mulder and Scully show as well.
Yes. But yeah, the sudden change of the intro sequence, and so many people in the intro sequence.
Yeah, we've added in Skin Man at long last, and also Reyes, yeah.
I mean, it used to get a bit weird when there were 3 of them in there and they struggled, but having 5 of them is, probably shouldn't put them all in here.
I think it's nice appreciating.
It is nice.
Skin Man in particular has earned his slot in the opening.
He really has. And Reyes is kind of like the whole, she's not going anywhere. But yes, okay, so political climate has influenced the X-Files. I don't know, I just would have liked them to sort of try a bit more gracefully to handle the attitude change between 2 seasons. Especially as you've been watching trash comedy for half the year to get to this point.
Yeah.
I don't know, it could just be me, but they struggled to know what to do with Lon Gunman in these 2 episodes, because they show up and they do Lon Gunman-y stuff, but they're kind of props just to get a few things moving. They don't actually involve them, per se. And as I queried at the time, and you confirmed, Reyes hasn't met these people before. And the series just glosses over that there's no introduction.
I've got to admit, you asked me that when we were watching it, and I wasn't sure, because they usually show up in conspiracy episodes, so I wasn't going to discount they and Reyes have been together.
Yeah.
But no, apparently not. This is the first time they've met, and nobody introduces them.
No, because they just show up at Skinner's house and walk in, and it's the... Reyes, you're still nominally an FBI agent. You want me to sort of protest this?
I guess I'm not against their appearance. Originally, they were Mulder's friends, so they were more like his informants. But we've moved on from there. You know, they're more friends of Scully as well now. They've had involvement with Skin Man before.
Yeah.
So we can appreciate them kind of coming into the series more organically.
Yeah, I've got no objection to that. It's just that someone should tell Reyes who they are.
Yeah.
Because it's 3 men have shown up in the middle of the night and you don't know who they are.
It's okay, they're our hackers. Bring them in, boys.
And I think it's difficult not to do this because the episodes do run together so much, but it's how there's even less friction in the part 2 when they show up, and it's just that, oh, how'd you get into the FBI office? And they give the excuses. Okay, we'll just leave that lying there apparently and let them give me a clue. I'm not sure why Reyes had to have this relationship with Brad Fulmer, our new ambiguous FBI director.
Because he's Carrie Elways and he's gorgeous.
Setting that aside, I understand why that's fine. Yeah, but I mean, in terms of her character, you would have thought this would have come up somehow previously when she's hanging around Washington so much. And there's not even a blip of it, is there?
No.
He's been created out of whole craft now.
No, we've got to assume that she had a prior relationship with Fulmer and he's gone on to become an AD, whereas she was off in the New Orleans field office.
Yeah, and also, the implication is the relationship hasn't ended, though, because he seems very keen to pick it up again. It's like that.
I think
it's in the same place.
I think it's more of a friends with benefits sort of thing was the idea I got, where, you know, he's got more of a thing for her, they've grown distance and he's hoping to relight that fire again.
I suppose we could say that.
Mm.
I'm not sure she needed that, though.
I'm not against it.
I'm not against it.
You criticise the fact that Scully never had relationships and stuff like that, so now they've given you a character who's come with a pre-installed relationship and you've got a problem.
Oh, true. But I think my problem is that we don't get to see how it works normally. We get the whole, it's already onto the rocks.
I like it, and I disagree with this, but when I was reading criticisms of this episode from the time it was aired, people were very complimentary about Lucy Lawless, but less complimentary about Carrie Elways, saying that he seemed forced. But at the same time, I think he's the perfect choice of actor, and I have a small bias. I like Carrie Elways a lot, particularly in the Saw films. But Carrie Elways is an interesting actor because he always plays very charming characters, even when he plays villains. So you can never be quite sure if Carrie Elways is on the level, or whether it's lulling you into a false sense of security, which makes him a perfect choice for an X-Files actor, when we've learned that particularly people in positions of power in the governments from the X-Files tend to be untrustworthy. So it feeds into that trust no one sort of feel to it.
Absolutely. And part 2 will make this unclear. And
I'd buy at this stage, though, we expect Carrie Elways to not be on the level because often characters are, at least to begin with, even Skin Man was.
Yeah.
But you've also got a sense of he could just be acting out of jealousy because he realises that there's a strong relationship between Doggett and Reyes.
Yes. Obviously, new assistant directors of the FBI are nothing new, and this is just another one. It is odd. We seem to be really bad at introducing rank and file FBI staff, but ADs, we can put them in easy.
We have plenty of ADs now.
We have, and is it just because they make better obstacles than just the rank and file?
I must admit, I like some of the subtle politics in this episode. I particularly like the bit where Fulmer kind of goes behind everyone's back to try and get Doggett into trouble with Kirsch. Just the way it turns around where Kirsch kind of then says, all right, you want to reprimand him? You're an AD, you go do it. Oh no, I can't get my name put to this, says Machiavellian villain in the background. It's like, no, I'm under investigation. If you want to get him in trouble, off you go. Kirsch is not playing into any internal politics.
No. At the same time, though, you've got to say, if Kirsch is under investigation, and he's not apparently prevented from doing any of his job, which you think you would do if you're under investigation, wouldn't you?
No, I doubt it because it's an allegation coming from an underling. It's more a whistleblowing thing at this stage.
True. Although at the same time, it's on reflection, Doggett's whole, aha, we're going to investigate you and the FBI, feels kind of the whole, Doggett, you run a joke department that no one really cares about. What are you going to do?
But you're bearing in mind that Doggett is a cop at heart and he believes in justice. So Doggett believes that if he approaches things in the right way, it's all going to be resolved, everything will be fine, any corruption will be found. Because he hasn't quite figured out the way the X-Files works yet and the fact that you can't trust anyone and everything will be brushed under the carpet.
Yeah, and that, I think, again, it's part 2 Lucy Lawless says about exposing things, it is one of those parts of the X-Files where, you know, how the FBI probably operates and how public disclosures run into each other of Mulder can do what he wants in his reports. They're possibly not going to see the light of day or get into the press because the FBI can't run any of Mulder's stuff as news reports or press releases because they'll be laughing stock. So I don't know what Mulder hopes to achieve.
We've actually got this entire department dedicated to investigating Big Feet.
Yeah. Again, I said, I'm sure somehow Congress and the Senate have never said, this Fox Mulder and this, who is she? Dana Scully. What are they doing with taxpayer money?
Well, this week they were investigating Mothman, sir.
You lie. They've never looked into Mothman. They should have done, but but Carrie Elway's as a Machiavellian person is fine. It does feel like he's not great at it, given that Kirsch is able to trip him over that easy. Because you'd think have a more indirect way of influencing people than just going straight to the person and saying, well, you should do this.
I'm picturing my head as kind of like, at this stage, because we don't know how on the level he is, at the very least it's that kind of slimy middle management. It's like Dwight in The Office.
Yeah.
Who believes you've got more power than you've got and are determined to undermine people you don't like.
Yeah, I can see that.
Mm.
But then he's an assistant director, and Kirsch is deputy director, I think.
He's whatever ranks above AD.
Yeah. He's like one step removed from head of the FBI. Somehow. As much as I know you said you liked the episode as an intro, I do feel it completely lost itself in like the last 10 minutes.
The bit where we went to the kind of salination plant or whatever it was.
Yeah, because we just abruptly cut from like Skinner sort of saying, drop this Doggett, to Skin Man and Doggett break into this place. You go, who, what now?
There is a sense of disconnect in this episode, and it can be partially excused from it being a two-parter as well, but we don't really understand why Lucy Lawless... Sharon. Why Shannon is targeting randos.
Yeah, I think we do get an explanation next time, but it's not...
You know that they're both connected to water treatment in some way because she kills one at the water treatment plant, and the other one is talking about that chemical they put in water before she drowns him.
Yeah. At the same time, as much as the opening is mysterious with the whole crashing off the bridge, her hang on to his ankle so he drowns, guys, there's easier ways of doing this. You could just fling him into the water. You could hug him and jump into the river and not do the car crash.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, presumably they want to try and make it look like a suicide or an accident, but then the autopsy turns up the fingerprints, so...
I would still like to argue that that's not the...
It's not the stupidest one, though.
No, that's not what I mean. It's not the obvious solution that I would have drawn from that.
No.
Admittedly, I'm not the scientist, but they kind of immediately draw from that, he was held down in the car.
Yeah.
One, it's around his ankle, which isn't a really obvious place to hold someone down if you're holding them down. Plus, it doesn't even look like it's his ankle that she grabs. I thought she grabbed his thigh when she's got him in the car. I guess she then snatches him as he's swimming up.
Yeah,
that could be the ankle.
That could be it.
But at the same time, couldn't you have a more rational explanation that just before you went for this drive, something kinky was going on, or any other time that he might have been grabbed with a force that could bruise him?
Yeah, there are plenty of...
Admittedly, the ankle's a bit of a weird place still, but I don't think my first thought would have been something was sitting in the car holding him by the ankles as he drowned.
Not the most obvious conclusion. I don't know how to bring this up, because it's a weird point the episode keeps doing, and I don't think there's ever an excuse for it, and I'm pretty sure it's there as fan service. But Lucy Lawless just gets naked whenever she goes swimming in this episode.
The internet assures me, and sorry, this is from random internet assurances, that one of the most difficult things in filming this episode were hiding the fact that she was wearing a swimsuit. So it is even a conscious effort to make her look naked at all times when the actress actually wasn't on set. Take that how you will.
She could just be wearing clothes. I mean, she is when she crashes the car. She's not wearing much of a dress at the time, but she's wearing something.
I'd even take she's prepared for this and you just get a brief shot of her slipping off her jacket and she's wearing a wetsuit underneath or something.
Yeah.
Just to explain briefly visually that, yep, she was prepared, this was always the plan.
The whole car crash is fine. It's when she comes into the salinization plant or whatever that is, and she gets out of the water and just strolls off nakedly, and you just go, why? And then when she grabs Doggett at the end, it's like...
I'm still not sure how easy it would be to swim into one of these salination plants.
No.
So you think there'd be filtration systems and stuff like that.
You would.
It's not just a massive woman-sized pipe leading in from outside.
Well, the double bit I don't get about that one is the guy she kills is the guy who spots her, and she's walking away from him when she first sees him, and he runs away, and then she comes and grabs him.
Yeah.
And drowns him. Did they want her naked back that badly?
She was and is a very attractive woman.
I'm not going to dispute this, because, I mean, there's a prevailing sense of... I do wonder if it's basically TV restrictions have loosened up significantly, perhaps. Because we used to get Scully cheesecake. There's a lot of Scully cheesecake in previous episodes.
Yeah.
Like, the pilot even has Scully in her underwear for not the best reasons. But now we have Lucy Lawless strolls around nakedly, or is perceived to be naked. Reyes sleeps topless. Have we decided that, yeah, we're going to convince people to watch this by giving them almost nudity all the time?
Nudity in which you see, like, a shoulder and very little more.
There's some of her upper chest. There's the light levels then dim really fast, and so you can't see what is in
very murky water.
Yeah, and I will admit that some of the editing is quite good. Like when she plunges into the water with the salinization guy, the way they've done the vision, you can't focus on the left-hand side of the screen when Lucy Lawless is coming down, or the stunt double who's playing Lucy Lawless at the time, so you've no idea what kind of state of dress they're in.
Mm.
But presumably she's also not wearing anything at that point.
Oh, it seems so. Well, wearing her like suit jacket and stuff would create too much drag.
Oh, clearly, yes. I mean, not like she's super strong and doesn't need to breathe, and she can breathe underwater or something.
You don't know that yet. You can come to that conclusion.
I'm going to come to that conclusion based on the events where she does this. We'll get confirmation later. But yeah, the end of the episode, though, is Skinman and Doggett just break into this guy's office, and you're going, Skinner, I thought you said to leave us alone like 30 seconds ago, and you're here.
The Fulmer's somehow right behind as well.
Yeah, that was also weird. And
it was a bit of an awkward cut. I felt there should have been more to explain how Fulmer's come right after them and stuff like that.
And also the bit where they sort of accuse Scully and Reyes of moving the body. It's like, do you know how heavy those things are? You can't just throw it out the window.
Mm. No, they don't blame Scully and Reyes. They blame Doggett.
Yeah,
Doggett has somehow sprinted off with this human body.
What's he done with it? What do you mean what he's done? The body, there's a whole joking community about how difficult it is to shift bodies around.
Yeah. I think the other bit of the conspiracy we need to know at this stage is William.
Oh, God, yes, we completely overlooked William.
Mm. It feels, to be fair, part 2, when we get to that shortly, does bring that in a bit better, but it just feels unconnected in this one with the whole Scully isn't interested in putting a child at risk, but then a light breeze blows a mobile over the baby's crib.
Oh, no, you don't. Because you pointed out to me, the foley-artists have made this sound like a saw trap.
Oh, yeah. Okay, she has the rusty barbed wire mobile over the baby's bed, apparently.
It is painted nice and bright colours and everything else.
But it sounds like a saw trap when it goes off. Just this shrill horror movie grating metal noise that it makes that wakes her up from sleep.
Yeah, and you gotta wonder how this happened, because I can understand, okay, you want Scully to not see it start and wake up halfway through and not know what caused it. That's fine.
I think if I was thinking of the Foley sounds for a baby's mobile, though, I'd think maybe like slight light clicking and possibly a music box sound as it starts going.
Generally, they're made of plastic.
And they often play music as well.
But I mean, if it's not switched on, though, because presumably this is William influence, we assume when William influences telekinetically.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of these ones where we have to put a pin in that to kind of talk about later, because there's a whole thing about it. At the same time, aliens have done limited telekinetic stuff in the past. They don't do it very often, but they have done it.
Yes. And there was also the indication after Mulder was infected with the oil virus that he became vaguely psychic for a while. It wasn't telekinetic, but he had kind of like perceptive abilities that almost burnt his mind out.
Yeah. But what I was going to say is the only things that seem to have been telekinetic are grey aliens, because Bounty Hunter does not do telekinesis. Because I don't think you'd actually survive if you had telekinesis.
I'd also go with my time on the X-Files as Scully is I wouldn't necessarily jump to there's something wrong with my baby. It would be, okay, where's the poltergeist? Where's the invisible person who snuck into my room? Wind-controlling mutant. The list is endless now.
Yeah, then we've observed, though, this is the problem with the X-Files, when you step back and look at it as a whole, is basically it's a switch on and off situation for, is it alien or is it supernatural? And occasionally they refer to the other one within it, like Small Potatoes, they infer the Bounty Hunter.
Yes.
Even though that's not the situation at all, but they do at least allude to it. And Soft Light has a nod to Squeeze and everything.
And Fire.
And Fire. We made that big thing about Skinner and the rubber mask in Lone Gunman. Is they don't take their past experiences into account at all.
I think after 8 years on the X-Files, I would be a paranoid wreck.
Yeah.
Anything slightly odd falls over in the house and you'd be getting out the EKG meters and everything else.
Well, you just call the Kalasharian.
It's a good point. She could have called the Kalasharian. I'm sorry, that demon that Mulder looked at directly appears to have found my child. Yeah. In you come, boys.
Yes, and we don't think that at all.
Mm.
At the same time, we made that point of basically they can't trust anyone ever anyway, because once you've encountered the shapeshifters and understand how they work, your reality is broken. You are unable to cope. Quite how they're still standing, I don't know.
You can no longer trust anybody.
Yeah. But what gets me, and we made this point in Lone Gunman, is that they should have the same paranoia. Because they've seen this done 3 times? And they just aren't fazed by it.
You'd have to have some test of anyone who came into your house to make sure it wasn't a doppelganger.
Yeah, but then you've got anyone with the implied psychic abilities of aliens just kind of renders that one moot as well.
Mm.
So knowing that Gillian Anderson was an 11th hour addition to this does explain and make sense going forward how clunky William is. I don't like him. I didn't like him in the first place, and I like him even less in retrospect.
I must admit, and it's something that's hard to judge because they say that it's one of those things where if you don't have kids, you don't understand. But I kind of object to any point in the series where you have a strong, independent woman until she gets pregnant, and then that's her entire thing.
Yeah.
Which is what you kind of have here with Scully, and I appreciate the fact that Gillian Anderson herself requested a small role, so they weren't going to have her front and centre being her usual self. But at the same time, in this episode, barring one autopsy that's largely off camera in that case, all you get is her fretting about her baby.
Yeah.
So that one Boston Herald critique of her being diluted, be it the actress's request or not, it is technically accurate. She is.
William, though, is going to be... I don't know how much to get into it now, because we're not going to escape this dratted child. He's going to loom large over everything else we have to talk about for the remainder of the series, which is infuriating.
True. Should we talk about episode 2 and then we can stop being so vague?
Would you like to tell us...
Do you have any more characters that need to be introduced before we do this?
I don't, because everyone... the credits run together, but I think Lucy Lawless is in both episodes, Carrie Elwes is in both episodes. Everyone else is returning because we get Adam Baldwin comes back in this one as Nora.
I feel you're missing Ryan Cutrona in that case, who is the naval captain on the boat.
Oh,
who isn't in part 1.
He wasn't linked on my Wikipedia page.
He's in Millennium.
Is he? Okay.
He appears in a Millennium episode called Weeds.
Ah, see, we're just plundering each other's series. Would you like to start about Nothing Important Happened Today, Part 2?
Our episode opens this time as a naval captain delivers a communication to someone called Dr. Nordlinger, who orders the vessel return to base. In the meantime, Brad Fulmer leaves the water reclamation facility after he doesn't manage to find Doggett. Meanwhile, in the underwater vat, we do see that Shannon has managed to keep Doggett alive by kind of breathing into his lungs to stop him from suffocating. Meanwhile, back at the FBI headquarters, Reyes has a bit of a to-do with Fulmer, who warns her that for the good of her career, she should try and keep her distance from Doggett and Kirsch. Reyes is deeply critical of Fulmer for this, of course, because she believes that it's all for her, basically. He wants Doggett to leave the FBI, so he's got her. Doggett wakes up back at his own home and finds that Sharon is there with him. She identifies herself as someone who served with him in the Marines and says that after they left the crew, both she and Noel Rowe were recruited together to a military program that turned them into Generation 1 super soldiers. This gives her certain powers, such as the super strength and the ability to breathe underwater that we've already seen. Doggett calls over Scully when Sharon indicates that she has important information about William. Sharon explains that what the government is trying to do at the water plant is to expand this super soldier program by adding a drug to the water supply, This is the chloramine that we've heard people mentioning. It's not actually chloramine, which is a type of chlorine substitute, but it's something that they've genetically manipulated, which will make people's bodies more susceptible to giving birth to the next generation of super soldiers. Back at the ship, which is now docked in Baltimore, the captain attempts to call Wormus, obviously not realising he's already been murdered. As the captain returns to the ship, he can't find his second-in-command, but instead finds a strange man who identifies himself as the new second-in-command and demands information about their mission. As the audience, we recognise that this man is Noel Rohr. Although Sharon shows Scully the weird bumps down the back of her neck, which we'd previously seen in Noel Rohr, Scully examines her and claims that she is physically normal. Doggett has a meeting with Kirsham-Fulmer in which he is formally suspended, something that Doggett refuses to accept, though I'm not sure you can actually do that in this situation. In the meantime, Reyes does some research into Sharon McMahon and learns that she is a Justice Department employee who had previously been contacted by both Wormus and McFarlane in their attempt to expose the plans to contaminate the US's water supply. The lone gunman also assists her in intercepting the captain's calls to Wormus, in which Frohickey then pretends to be Wormus and gathers more information from them over the phone. Back on the boat, the captain tries to break into the hidden lab, which is in the belly of the ship, demanding that Dr. Norlinger surrenders the project's data. However, Rohr sneaks up behind him and stops him. Using Reyes' new information, Scully, Reyes and Doggett all head to where the ship is docked, where they are immediately attacked by Rohr. As Scully and Reyes rush aboard the ship, Rohr attacks Doggett and almost kills him, but he is saved when Sharon decapitates Rohr. However, immediately Rohr's headless body still attacks and stabs Sharon through the stomach, and both of them fall into the water. Aboard the ship, Scully gains access to the hidden lab and finds the evidence that they are indeed experimenting on human ova. However, as she is searching around, Doggett finds a bomb on the bridge, and he convinces Scully that William needs her and she needs to leave urgently, allowing the three of them to very narrowly escape the explosion that destroys all the evidence. Back at the FBI headquarters a couple of days later, Doggett confronts Kirsch, who was not implicated in the conspiracy. Kirsch explains to Doggett that he left evidence that helped Doggett, presumably the dossier that we previously saw Reyes finding, and also that he told Mulder to flee, but ultimately it was Scully that actually convinced Mulder he had to get the hell out of Dodge. Meanwhile, Scully wakes up in the night, dreaming of Sharon and Rohr's bodies beneath the harbour, and Sharon's eyes snapping open. As she awakes, we see that William's mobile is once again beginning to move on its own accord.
Well, we hear it at the end, because this is the very last little bit, isn't it?
Alright, yes, you don't see it move, but you hear the saw trap sound over the end credits.
Again, what is the foley-artist doing? I know you said part 1 was a good start to the series. Part 2 doesn't have the slack of some two-part episodes. On the other hand, it's not really coherent.
It should be noted that between these two episodes, the Nielsen ratings did drop significantly.
I'm not surprised.
But yeah, I agree with you that part 2 felt a bit rushed to me. I don't think it's as strong as the first part.
No, I think they tried to cram too much stuff in. At the same time, I think they're falling back on troublesome things they used to do. Because it's... One of the X-Files problems that's been doing it since the start is this person says they know the answers to things. And then they either get killed or, as in this episode, it turns out they're not who they say they are. How many times have we heard, they're not who you think they are? Like, can someone just, when the person comes to them, is look into them then and not let the partner go off and do the investigation?
I guess we call it the Dwayne Barry effect.
Yeah, because that's the first time they did it, I think.
It's usually they discredit them in some way of, oh, this person has come and said this, and then half an episode later someone will look into them and say, oh, did they disclose that they had schizophrenia or something like that? Can I tell you my favourite little just site reference in this episode that I'm not sure if you picked up?
Go on.
When they look into the idea of Sharon McMahon, it says that her birthplace was Snoqualmie Falls.
Okay.
That is the waterfall you see in the opening sequence of Twin Peaks.
That's very cool. I like that.
Yeah.
But yes, it would be nice if the lead of the series or the nominal person doing the investigation would just, on past experience, just pause, go do the background check first before getting excited. because it keeps happening.
We've been approached by this person called Sharon McMahon. Well, that's a funny sounding name. Let's go check her out.
Who he served with apparently, but then didn't seem to recognise it. That was very strange.
Well, people change a lot in apparently less than a decade.
Yeah. And so we've got the confirmation of the underwater breathing.
Yes.
It's odd that no one actually sort of voices the thing they should voice when they hear this. Or, the fact that super soldiers, we've mentioned them kind of at the tail end of the last series, and we're doing them again. No one seems to be connected together of, remember Billy Miles, who they picked up just before Mulder, and he did that whole thing where he shed his skin, had 2 heartbeats, and then turned into the Terminator. And we spent a long time trying to kill him, and mostly failed. Billy Miles is still around, isn't he?
He is, yes.
But he basically turned into the Terminator.
Yes. You kind of get a Terminator shot with Noel Rohr in this one too, when he's walking towards Doggett, who's shooting him in the chest.
Yeah, having not learned anything about me.
I'm going to say for Terminator as well, though, Scully examines, supposedly, Sharon in this episode and says there's nothing weird about her. I think Sharon could prove that there's something weird about herself quite easily.
Yeah.
There's the scene in Terminator 2 where he proves that he is a robot by peeling all the skin off his arm.
Yeah.
We know that she can regrow basically everything. She could just, cleave her hand, thunk.
Yeah.
Here's my hand regrowing. Disprove that, Scully.
Well, I think this feeds back into my complaint about we can't ever let the characters move on definitively to supernatural knowledge. We let them have the knowledge that aliens exist, but there's limits to how far the writers allow them to go.
We could have, I've cut my hand off and look over the course of the day, it's regrown.
Yeah.
We can have fill up the bathtub, I am going to hold my breath down there for 11 minutes.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Oh yeah, absolutely. And the fact they don't do any of them is maddening, because again, you could prove things.
I'm not a scientist, but I think these would have been amongst my tests if this person is claiming this.
Yeah. Well, as I say, there's two branches off from this. One is Scully and Reyes. You should recognise that this is the next stage of the alien plan. We don't understand at all what it is anymore, but this is the next stage, and that additive being put into the drinking water, we'll come back to that in a minute.
I'm not even going with alien plan. It's the next part, at least, of the government defence against the alien plan.
True, but we know that Billy Miles and Mulder are deeply connected to the UFOs, and that's how the super soldier thing came in, was with Billy Miles.
But it's the US government that's affecting the drinking water and trying to make women give birth to these.
Oh yeah.
So there is some...
It's all government
involvement.
Ultimately, it's the aliens. Aliens have sparked this off.
Yeah.
This was all a result of Mulder's abduction. This is the new alien plan. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but we're going to have to go with it. Super soldiers, apparently.
But you bear in mind that the old plan involved hybrids that was technically started by the aliens because they were giving us a fighting chance. You've got 10 years to make your hybrids.
Yeah. But my other point, though, is they've forgotten how to write Scully, but it shouldn't be a shock because they've never been good with writing Scully consistently. But I was reflecting back is that in the past, and it's things that the Lone Government didn't do, is Scully will offer you mundane explanations for the weird stuff.
And sometimes they're less satisfying than it just being supernatural, but she will try and explain it in scientific terms.
Yes. And she does not.
No.
Not even trying this episode.
But she kind of says, no, Sharon's a perfectly normal human that can hold their breath for 11 minutes.
Yeah.
As humans do.
Do you want to sort of expand on that, Scully? Does she have a quirk to her lungs that they have more density than normal or something?
Guybrush Threepwood could do it.
No, he could only do 10.
Oh, can he only do 10?
His big thing was he could do it for 10 minutes.
11's too far.
11 is too far for Guybrush Threepwood. He can't do it. But I suppose it makes sense if Scully wasn't meant to be in here until the last minute. That's kind of why she's there.
I did think it interesting for Scully's development. The manic bit at the very end where Doggett has to convince her to leave the evidence behind before she gets blown up is a very, very Mulder-like quirk. It sounded a lot like the kind of way Scully would talk Mulder out of things in early episodes of the whole, you're going too far, you're going to die if you keep doing this, and then what good are you going to be if you're dead? That conversation was very nicely reversed, I thought, where we're seeing Scully in the Mulder role, and Doggett saying, no, for God's sake, Scully, leave the exploding ship now.
At the same time, you could be really petty or critical, and I might be, and just say, this is again kind of pointing out Chris Carter's limitations, and possibly Spotness as well, of they can conceive of 2 lead characters. One of them is Mulder, one of them is Scully, and you can switch around which gender is which. you can't get away from the defined roles.
I guess it is. If you're looking at it that way, it's like gender flipped the end of Little Green Men, for example.
Yeah. And that's a problem of the fact that Scully would behave differently. I understand what you're trying to do with her concern for a child, but she has the rationality. She's not a believer in the same way that Mulder was, of she's not going to ignore the counting down clock. And there's also the weird thing where they escaped from that boat in like 5 seconds when it took them at least 2 minutes to get in there. That was quite bad.
There was some video game logic in there, I felt.
There was. And in terms of the whole thing with the episode way too fast, is there's no attempt to get into the cover-up, because that boat exploding is going to have to be covered up somehow. There has to be a cover story for that happening, because people are going to notice that happening at night.
Teenage arsonists. Done. I've covered it up for you.
The episode has to do it, though, because it should be, Oh,
you mean there's no mention in the episode?
Yeah,
Government denies all knowledge, that sort of bit.
Reyes or Doggett or Scully would have to have the newspaper. All the gunmen come in and say, hey, they said that your thing is nothing to be worried about. But you also pointed out there's a weird, critical problem with that bomb.
It's not very big, and it's also in the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But that is a huge, military ironclad, and they're right in the belly of it.
Yep.
So would it really destroy the entire ship?
I don't think so. I think you'd just, blow up at the top bit, and they could probably go down to the base.
If he'd put it... I'm not very good, as you've heard before, with boat terms, but on the inside wall under the water level, where you're going to blast a hole in it and the thing's going to go down, particularly if it's at sea.
Yeah, which it was. Well,
no, it's not. It's docked. So it's not going to go all the way down for starters.
True, but you're still going to basically destroy everything below the water line.
But it's in the wheelhouse, which I know I've got a limited knowledge of boats, but that's at the top.
Yeah. I think it's a big flashy way to end the episode, but when you start thinking about it, it's a case of, you can probably go in there and retrieve all that evidence.
We keep calling that thing a military vessel, but it looks an awful lot like the freighter they used in the X-Files video game and Piper Maru.
Yes.
Which was a cargo ship.
Nisai, actually.
Which I think was a cargo ship. It wasn't a military thing.
Yeah. Well, I had another point to this, and I'm not sure how this works. Okay, so the boat is docked. The captain wants to go make a phone call, and his second in command says, we're not meant to leave the boat.
Yeah.
Captain says, don't care, I'm going to do it anyway. Walks up to the payphone, uses the payphone, calls Wormus, or tries to call Wormus, comes back. Second in command's been replaced by Noel Raw. And the captain just kind of rolls with that. Looks a bit weird, but kind of rolls with it. Yeah?
I'm sure second in command's teleporting all the time.
Well, that's my point of, no one's meant to come on and off the boat, and you've got a crew member you don't recognise.
I think you would probably court-martial him there.
Yeah, you'd be a bit more panicked that this guy has just showed up. Because...
boat security in here.
Yeah, where's the second in command?
There's a rando and he's just told me he's now the second in command.
Well, it's also the whole...
we don't look for him either. The second
No.
They do turn him up. They find him in the water.
Yeah.
But nobody says, quick, search the ship, we're missing a man.
Yeah, or ask him for evidence. Because I just go back to the whole general problem of the X-Files is so much of their evidence is person is going to give a testimony and has nothing.
Yeah.
And they rely on it so much. But then you get these ones where Noel Raw just takes over and it's just, oh yeah, I've been assigned to you instead. Say, where are the orders? Can we see the orders? Can we radio into someone and get confirmation?
First of all, can I have your boat ID, please?
What gets me about that, though, is when conspiracy terms is absolutely you can have the people on the end of the radio and have the fake documentation. He can handle that over. It's the fact that no one asks for it.
Yeah.
I understand that maybe someone said, well, it's going to be fake anyway. We don't need to bother with this bit. It's like, yes, you do. For normal humans in these situations.
Of course, sir. Here's my boat ID and written orders. You can call my Commander Steve here.
Yeah.
And you call Commander Steve and he said, yep, that's him.
Exactly. It's kind of maddening. These aren't problems to work around. You don't have to just ignore they're happening. But we do so often. What the hell else happened in this episode? Oh, Doggett refused to be suspended.
I love that scene.
As you said, I'm pretty sure you can't just not be suspended.
I love the idea that I can go into work tomorrow and my boss can call me and say, hey, you're fired. I say, no, I don't agree with that. And just go back to my desk.
One thing what was also slightly confusing about it is it's not totally clear that he just says, you'll regret it or something, or I won't be stopped. and walks out again. It's like, is he leaving the building or is he going back to his office? I'm very unclear.
I'm certainly going to bear this in mind if I'm ever fired. The fact that you can just say no.
I know there are certain circumstances where you can refuse this, but I think it's like voluntary retirement and kind of things, or redundancies. You can say no to these things. But yeah, not suspension. I'm pretty sure that's they can unilaterally say this.
Especially as this is coming from both an AD and a deputy director sat together telling you that you're suspended.
Doubly so for bursting in and shouting at them.
Yeah. I kind of actually like that scene for, again, adding points to Fulmer is not on the level.
Yeah.
When he burst into shout at Kirsch and Fulmer was just in the corner like cigarette smoking man used to be. So at least you're putting the seeds in that, is he going to be our new cancer man?
Yes. Yeah, I think that works. And that's I don't have a problem with most of the FBI shenanigans, at least.
Yeah.
Other than quite why everyone is sort of just going to ignore how involved they were with the whole explosion last time.
Boats explode all the time, Nick.
And cars in car parks. I don't think we really touched on Shannon was not meant to be a one-off.
No, that's possibly something we should mention, is she's introduced in this way, and you have Scully's dream of her opening her eyes, because she was supposed to be a recurrent character in the same way Fulmer is.
Yeah. It's all implied that she's going to come back, and it's really odd to reflect that that's it.
The reason for it was, shortly after she filmed the second part that she was in, she found out that she was pregnant, and apparently Lucy Lawless had a history of miscarriages. So therefore, because it's a high-risk pregnancy, she had to back out of the series for her own and for her baby's safety. Which is completely fair. Yeah. It's a very rational reason to do that.
Yes. I think, and we'll have to pay attention to this going forward, I think the problem is they just drop anything they had intended.
I think it's probably for the best. The super soldiers aren't shapeshifters, so you couldn't artlessly recast another similar woman in the role. No, but I don't think we get an equivalent of the super soldier to take her place. That would be something interesting to watch out for if there's another prominent super soldier that's going to appear that's her obvious insert. Yeah, because again, I can't remember if this is Nor out or he's still come back. Is he out? Nope, he's not out. He's not out. You get more Null. We got more Null. So, yeah, do you get the impression that he was meant to be out and that's... They've justified the decapitation by he's fine. So we're going to suppose that Noel is going to take over what was intended for her. Because I think this looks like it's meant to be he's going to die at this point. Except he went through a garbage crusher in existence, so I don't think this would kill him. No, that was Billy Miles. Is that Billy Miles? That was Billy Miles. No, Raw was exploded in the car. Ah, okay. If it was just an explosion, that's probably fine. I would say the garbage disposal would do it, but what do I know? No, I'm kind of disappointed that it's not Highlander rules. But then again, she has demonstrated there. I'm assuming I nearly said there can be only one, but you mean the whole it takes decapitation to kill them, is what you're going. I'm also not adverse to the super soldiers have to fight until there's only one left, and that one will get the prize. Come on, rip off Highlander. This would be so much more fun. Possibly the Highlander TV series was on at the time, and they might not have wanted to mess with that. I don't know. Never seen it. Don't think I want. There can be only one. It's interesting you pointed out that Shannon could easily prove superhuman ability. She proves it in front of Doggett, and Doggett doesn't believe anything. Doggett, you just saw her chop a man's head off with her hand. That's not normal. Maybe it is for the Marines. Okay, but then can Doggett do it? He could, he just doesn't want to. I don't like this. Should we talk about the episode title? Because we're pretty sure that Kirsch... I don't know if it's a general thing, but Kirsch, as written, suddenly doesn't seem to understand what the phrase means, or why the phrase was written as it was. So, to explain, and to make sure I've got the right phrase, because I keep saying the wrong one, nothing important happened today. That's the one. It is a legendary line that supposedly King George of England wrote in his journal. So King George III was the King of England at the time that America became independent. 1776. Yep. According to the legend, in his journal for that day when this huge loss for the British occurred, he just wrote, "Nothing important happened today." Yep. And I am not going to say either way. It's either the writers of The X-Files have misunderstood the meaning of that line, or America has. I don't know if this is how American is taught, is what an idiot King George was. But from an English reading, Kirsch's explanation for this, which was...
even the most powerful movers and shakers can miss when something is actively changing in their environment.
Is not how we read it in England. Again, this line is a legend. We don't know that if he actually did write this in his journal. But from the English point of view, it's very much the English humour of, we've lost America, big deal.
Yeah.
Nothing important happened today.
He's being very, very petty, and he's actually incredibly upset about this, but he's not letting on.
Which, to be fair, is a very English way of doing it, which we can say as English people. It's that bit where you're deeply hurt, but you can't let on you're hurt. Yeah. It's like, well, we didn't want to in America anyway.
Yeah. Last thing, then, I think we need to talk about is our absentee figure, Mulder.
Reynard Muldrake. It's the first ever season opener where he doesn't actually appear.
Da-da-da-da. But, so Kirsch apparently did suggest to Mulder at some unspecified point, possibly after Jimmy Bond freaked him out, because that would actually make you panic, I think, to flee. And Dogger puts together that Kirsch might have said this to him, and then Kirsch confirms that he said it to Mulder, he didn't convince him of it. Scully's the one who did convince him to sort of run away.
Yeah.
The fact that Gillian Anderson wasn't going to come back at all does lead to the obvious conclusion that when they go on to explain this, it was going to be stated that they have fled together.
Yeah.
And they've taken William with them.
Yeah.
And that makes 9,000% more sense than the situation they've left us with. Because what does Mulder have to fear of anything anymore? He's been unemployed for half a season and they haven't done anything to him.
Yet Scully has stuff to be afraid of.
Yes. Scully has a child to be afraid of. She has a job, her career. She's still putting her life on the line. But apparently if you remove Mulder from the equation, she'll be fine. This is really weak writing. I don't think I've ever quite grappled with how bad this is as a setup. Just to get Mulder out the way.
I was thinking it's one of these kind of men writing women sort of tropes. It's the hero complex is what you're seeing here. That all the conspiracy, all eyes, everything is focused on the man. He's the one who's in danger. He's the brave figure who now must sacrifice himself to ensure those around him are safe. Knowing the fact that Scully has been facing the same risks as him for 8 years now, has a baby who may have supernatural abilities, certainly has something godly about its birth, because we had that whole allusion to the birth of Christ in the last season.
Yes, which...
But of course, she's the woman. What do we care about? No one's going to care about the woman.
Yes. And I'm still bitter that my interpretation of that scene apparently was so far off base to be basically just fan fiction. I still think my one made more sense, but anyway. But logistically, though, if you were an outside agency looking on this, the baby is the key.
Yeah.
The baby should have gone with Mulder if that's what you're going to do.
Maybe even the mother, if you're looking at this program that causes women to give birth to super soldiers. A woman who has already given birth to a super soldier feels like she'd be in danger.
Yeah. And it's just... You can tell her request to be in the series came way too late to alter the script. Also appreciably. So they're stuck with these two things that do not fit.
Yeah.
The other thing that occurs to me, though, and they've unfortunately pulled the trick too soon, is that Mulder being abducted is a great way to actually remove him from this entire season.
Just don't bring him back.
Yeah. Or have the abduction happen, or have whatever you're doing with Scully now need to be crammed into season 8, because this is the Mulder's out the way and we can't get him back at all.
Yeah.
And that's a far better excuse than he's gone into hiding. Has he?
When you put it that way, it makes him almost seem cowardly.
It does.
He's protected himself and left Scully there to goodness only knows what happens to her.
Yeah, I think that's the problem of any way you slice it, is that you cannot get away from William is the logical focus of the conspiracy now. You can't do the messianic birth and then say, oh, but he'll be fine with Scully.
Yeah.
And then, it's like saying Joseph and the Nativity is the key. So Mary and Joseph can just go and stay in Bethlehem. Herod will just go straight past after Joseph and follow him over the horizon. That's the implication.
Yeah.
Ah!
But you complicate things a bit in the X-Files because Mulder had the rebirth, so Mulder plays both the Joseph role and the Christ role in our weird allegory.
That's also, I think, where things get too complicated when you're trying to do this stuff, is that, yeah, you had the rebirth and we even had him crucified with the crown of thorns.
And him going into the cave and returning after so many days. You've had so many Christ illusions with Mulder.
And then we're just going to say he's Joseph. But then also he's just going to hiding, and the actual Jesus child is just irrelevant, except that he's got telekinetic powers.
I think our biblical allegory is going a bit off the rails now. But hey, at least it's Monster of the Week next week.
Yeah, no.
You've remembered which one it is.
I remember we have a rough run of them, and this is like the worst of the rough for a while.
So next week will be our first taste of Season 9 Monster of the Week episodes with Demonicus and 4D.
Yes, and I've realised Reyes doesn't come up much, but we've got Reyes as part of the X-Files now, and she's got a desk in the office and everything. That's cool. Although Docker's taken over Scully's rather than just keeping the same one.
I think this is an interesting time for Reyes for these next two episodes because Reyes has been largely embroiled with the conspiracy up to now. This is the first time we see her and Doggett alone on a Monster of the Week investigation.
Because the previous one was the dead Doggett's son, flamey guy, Empedocles,
yeah. Which was kind of still a bit conspiracy as well. This is our first pure Doggett and Reyes do a Monster of the Week together.
Yes, well, to put it another way and refer back to what we said before, is this is the first time we get to see a complete gender-inverted X-Files.
Yes.
Because Scully never quite, despite lapsing into Mulder tendencies too often, Reyes better fits Mulder's mindset and Doggett better fits Scully's. If you'd like to get hold of us, our email address is thingsgettingstrange42@gmail.com.
You can also find us on social media, and please hook me up if you'd like me to promote anything at the start of an episode. So long as it's X-Files related, of course. You can find us on Twitter and Tumblr under @GetStrange42. We're on Mastodon @GetStrange42@universedon.com, and on Facebook, where you can find us by searching for Things Are Getting Strange and X-Files Rewatch Podcast. Additionally, if you're not sick of my voice right now, I also do stream live on Twitch TV. My username there is AdverseCamber42, and it is Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 PM GMT and Saturdays at 5 PM GMT. I just stream whatever I'm currently playing on PlayStation 5, which is currently Yakuza 4 Remastered and Disco Elysium.
We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/thingsgettingstrange, where for as little as $3 a month you can have access to our bonus episodes, including our Let's Play of the first X-Files game, the X-Files game from 1998, where you control Craig Gilmore in FMV sequences and maybe get him killed.
It kind of flips nicely between spending an ungodly amount of time scouring a warehouse for a single cigarette and dying in hilarious ways.
And some nice cameos from existing characters, and allegedly it fits into continuity, but you have to then say, wait, this is a strangely repetitive bit in the middle of season 3. Our theme music is a vision by Kevin MacLeod. You can find it on Computech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. Thank you all for listening, and until next time, please remember,
nothing important happened today.